You know what I mean? You know, if you're fighting against the toughest, you're going to become the toughest. If you're fighting in that environment, the toughest environment, you're going to become that environment. So let's just get used to the toughest environment and let's go for it. Let's just make it happen. I'm the head professor here. Modern day warrior. I'm the head professor here. What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Modern Day Warrior. I am your host, Angel Halo Lopez. First of all, I want to give a shout out to our Modern Day Warrior sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Onnit. For a limited time, you have a chance to try Alpha Brain for free. Just pay shipping and you'll get a 15-day supply at no cost. Alpha Brain is a dietary supplement that helps support cognitive function, including memory, mental speed, and focus. Supports memory, promotes focus, aids in mental processing, helps with flow state, caffeine-free, and gluten-free. Go to legendspodcasting.com and click on the link to help support the show today. We are also brought you by Fiverr. Fiverr is a freelance marketplace to get a logo done, a script written, or a picture edited, or even the song produced. Whatever your artistic needs are, there is a freelance artist out there waiting to do it for you. Help support the show today and click on the link at legendspodcasting.com and get your gaming mascot created by someone on Fiverr. Also brought to you by Halo Jiu-Jitsu. We kill you with kindness or choke you out to temporary blindness. Okay, but right now, today we have special guests Anthony Raimondo and Dr. Joe Martin. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic, Angel.
Okay, awesome, man. It's just such a major honor to have you guys on here. Been trying to get you guys on here for a long time. So, you're finally here, and let's let it rip. So, Anthony, what made you want to become a lawyer?
Originally, I became a lawyer because, honestly, I wanted to help defend people who were being pushed on by people more powerful than them, to defend the little guy.
Right. What school did you go to?
I went to my undergraduate work at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and then I went to law school at Vermont Law School in South Royalton, Vermont.
Awesome. So you are a constitutional attorney, correct?
I have a constitutional background, but I primarily practice labor and employment law with an emphasis on business law.
Amazing. All right. Yeah, you are definitely helping out all the small businesses out here in Fresno, California. So we are definitely thankful for you and, having you in our corner. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. My practice is mainly family businesses, a lot of family farms, small and medium-sized businesses. We focus on trying to represent the folks that oftentimes can't get access to like the big firm lawyers with the office in a skyscraper.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So we also have Dr. Joe Martin here, the owner of Doc's Gym. And Doc Joe, I know that you have a background. You were a Navy SEAL. So this question to me is like, what made you want to become such a savage in life like that? That's crazy, dude.
It's really hard. I mean, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on also, too. We go back a long way. I was thinking about it on the ride over. Gee whiz, it must be like 15, got to be close to 15, 16 years, something like that. And I think you and I associate with each other a little bit more because you and I both have this, the same military type of background. For myself, it was really interesting because right out of high school, I wasn't exactly the brightest bulb in the bunch as far as an education is concerned. And I think the military, if anything, made me. I tell a lot of my patients along the way. You see a lot of the plaques on the back of a wall, typical doctor, lawyer type of thing, all your accolades along the way. And I tell people it's not because I'm super smart, because man, Doc, you must be super smart. Look at all this stuff. I know the military, they just taught me, especially in the SEAL team, is I'm just too stupid to quit. And
right.
I think that's what the military does, gives you that foundation to just never quit. I think that's what kind of drove me into the SEAL team.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, to be a Navy SEAL, I know it's not everybody can make it. You got to be like extra physically, mentally, and emotionally tough. And that's something that you are since I've known you since the day I met you.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is my personal opinion. I did 6 years. I did 6 years in the military, 4 of it in the SEAL team. So there's a lot of guys out there that have way, way more experience. But what I did was I built upon the mental aspect, like you alluded to,
right.
Which made me the person I am in business and things like that. And I took a lot of the information from the SEAL team as far as the physical aspect of it. So when I did get out, got an undergraduate education in exercise physiology and nutrition, and then went on to the chiropractic program because a lot of guys in the teams, military, yourself included, have been a patient. We get broke, especially guys here in Halo also. So
Yes.
my job is to now mentally get people prepared for whatever they have in life.
Right. I always recommend my students to go see you if they're sore, their back's messed up or something. They can't turn their neck like me all the time. I'm like, man, you got to go see Doc Joe. He'll pop your whole life back in order and, get that chiropractic, skill that he has and take care of you and, get you going and make you right.
We try to work on the things from the neck down. Sometimes working with people from the neck up is a little bit difficult.
Right. I know. My neck is like damaged forever, but you've always helped me to at least, get a little taller that day when you pop my neck and everything. And I thank you greatly for always doing that, So now let's talk about the lockdowns, Anthony. So how do you feel about, the lockdowns? I mean, what's your view on all that?
Well, I believe that it's entirely unjustified. I mean, I think at this point, we're almost a year into all this.
Right.
And at this point, I think that there's really no argument that can be made that any of this works. And I think there's a lot of ways to look at this. I think the data that we're receiving is very, very inaccurate for a wide variety of reasons. But even if you accept the data on its face, these measures, whether it be masks, whether it be social distancing, and certainly closing businesses and closing schools, what has it accomplished? Even if you accept the data on its face, they're telling us it's worse than it's ever been. So clearly we need to change course.
Yes, and the numbers keep going up. They say, quote unquote, that the numbers keep going up. I think a lot of those numbers are fake in my, honest opinion. But if the mask works, then why are the numbers going up?
Correct. Again, I have a lot of questions about the test, and I think there's a lot of information about the unreliability of this PCR test that they're using, that these numbers are not accurate. They are very exaggerated that we're receiving. I mean, we've seen all over the country the hospital utilization data, for example, is being exaggerated in this message of fear that's being foisted on the public. But I think you don't even have to go that far to understand what folly these lockdowns are. Before 2020, as recently as 2019, both the CDC and the World Health Organization, when they talked about pandemic planning, the first priority was do not shut down.
Right.
Society needs to function in order to survive a pandemic. This whole thing that we did in response to COVID-19 was invented for the first time in 2020. It's the opposite of what our pandemic planning, response planning has always been. So I think there's no justification for it. I think it's illegal, and I think it's unconstitutional, and I think it's incumbent on all of us to speak up and push back on it.
I couldn't agree with you more. How do you feel about the lockdowns, Doc Joe?
Well, you brought up a lot of good points, and if you think of it this way too, and you're talking about the CDC and numbers, and there's a lot of people that will go politically, they'll go left, or they'll go politically, they'll go right. You have, which I don't really believe in, a lot of these CNN, NBC, Fox, and whatever. You alluded to the CDC and a lot of these numbers, and it's really the way it works is. It's kind of like they changed their venue almost in a way where you say in the beginning it was how many deaths, how many deaths, how many deaths. So the deaths are up. Well, then what happens is it kind of levels off, it drops down. Well, they have to kind of continue the scenario, if you will. So then what happens is now they say we have this many cases, but the deaths are different. So I try not to rely on any information from the news media, and I take the CDC with a grain of salt.
Right.
So when I look at that, I just looked at it the other day. If you do the math, and any death that we have in society is terrible, right? So we want to take away the emotional aspect. And if anything, my personal opinion is I take the emotions out. Politicians, the news people, whatever the heck it is, when they had the scenario of going of deaths only, and then that started to taper off, we still had to get the chaos going. So then what happens is they go, cases are going up. Well, of course they are, because we're doing more testing. We're doing our job. And I'm in the medical field, not necessarily with the pharmaceuticals and that. I'm in a holistic aspect for the most part. But then I started doing, I said, listen, I'm going to listen to one organization. I'm going to look up, every other day, CDC. If you look it up in the country right now, the top 5 you have, it's California, Texas, Illinois, and 2 other ones.
Right.
Right. If you do the math every day, every other day, and the amount of cases and I still don't believe the cases are correct.
Me neither.
I don't believe all the deaths. I know for a fact the deaths aren't correct because I've had patients come in and out of my office, signing death certificates that says COVID and their parent died of pancreatic cancer.
See?
So I know of at least 5 or 10. But when you do the math, whether you divide the country, the amount of cases plus deaths, you go California, Texas, whatever, it's still a 99.9% survival rate.
Right.
So my opinion, then we go back to the constitutional type of lawyer, is like, well, wait a minute. It's numbers. If we're just going numbers and take the emotion out of it, why are we not back to work?
Right. So the coronavirus has a 99.9% survival rate, but they want to scare us all and they want to, pump fear into us to be like, oh, go in your house, get locked down. That's when things are wrong, when they're trying to lock you down like that. Like when this thing first started, I'm like, man, this is so wrong on so many levels. I could not buy it. I mean, the first thing we were taught in the military, what were we taught? Don't pay attention to the media because they bullshit and they throw things out of proportion, and don't talk to them because of those reasons. So being a soldier, I was already taught that. So I had to follow that right away. And that's why I said, I'm not shutting down. Never did. Following the Constitution is the only way to go because, when governors get tyrant and stuff like that, you got to go against, you got to follow the Constitution.
Well, so like you and I both are veterans and things like that. So we know from our time in the military, there's information that we're given sometimes that is privy to us and not privy to civilians, we'll call it. We are now civilians, but we're veterans.
Right.
And I think what this pandemic did for me, it just constantly made me think. I know there's more information out there than we are not privy to.
Right.
Right. And there's information that they are guiding us because you and I are on the other side.
Yeah, we are.
Just in case something hit the fan, you and I had information or would get information that the civilians weren't privy to.
Exactly.
So that's why I always have that other ear out going, it's like a magician. Look at my hand here, but I'm going to pick your pocket from here.
Yeah, they're playing us.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're playing us. So, okay, they're hypocritical orders. Like, for instance, Anthony, having Walmart open versus a small business. I mean, who are they to deem what's essential and what's not? That was very that's kind of like hypocritical. It's people are getting misinformation.
Well, there's been no consistency in any of this, and it's all entirely arbitrary. And if anything, if you're thinking about the spread of an infectious disease, when you start locking down society, first of all, you're tearing apart the fabric that gives our healthcare system strength. Everything is interdependent. The economy is interdependent with our health, with medical treatment, with all of it. And so what we're seeing is we're funneling larger numbers of people into smaller numbers of venues and making it actually more likely that people have contact with each other. And Dr. Joe made a great point about the constitutionality of all this. So when we look at government restriction of people's rights under constitutional law, we have a lot of different standards that we view. It's called a level of scrutiny that we use to examine what level of justification does the government have to have in order to restrict somebody's rights. The lowest level of constitutional scrutiny that we apply to a government regulation is what we call rational basis test. And it's what it sounds like. Does the government have a rational basis for the restriction that they want to impose on our freedom? And I think this stuff clearly fails any sort of rational basis test, down to the fact of, you take something like the case numbers that Dr. Joe mentioned. These never before in history has medicine ever defined a case of a disease as someone who simply tested positive for the disease. They require a clinical expression of the disease in the form of symptoms. We've abandoned that completely. One of the pieces of data, you talk about data that we're missing. One of the pieces of data that they never talk about is what's called the cycle threshold for this PCR test, which I'm oversimplifying it, but essentially it's the number of times they spin the sample to try to get that positive test. And it's universally known that with the PCR test, that once you get above a cycle threshold of about 25, it's unreliable. In most of the United States, they're using a cycle threshold of 35 to 40 cycles and considering that a positive test. So they're picking up fragments of a virus from people who aren't sick, from people who aren't infectious, and they're calling that a case. In the testing numbers, the most recent analysis that I saw of the testing numbers, and this was, probably about a month ago, if you compare the testing levels now to where they were in the spring of 2020, our testing levels are up 2,600%. Well, you raise anything 2,600%, the numbers are going to go up.
Right.
And the old saying is, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Right.
And telling a story with statistics is very, very suspicious. And the follow the science crowd I find very amusing, because the very nature of science, and Dr. Joe can probably speak to this better than I can, but science is all about questioning the prevailing view, right? Every great scientific achievement has come from questioning the dominant belief of the scientific community at the time, and somebody saying, no, I'm going to test that belief.
Right.
And we're being told not to ask questions, not to test belief, not to test assumptions. That's the most unscientific thing that there is. Now, when we talk about something like the strictest restrictions the government wants to put on our freedom, those are what we call under strict scrutiny. If the government wants to suppress free speech, it has to survive a strict scrutiny analysis, which is a very, very high level of analysis. There's no way any of this can withstand that.
Right. Yeah, that's insane. Yeah. So, what do you think about the soldiers at the White House now? What do you think's going on there?
Well, we're being asked to believe that Joe Biden received the most votes for president of any person in history, more than Barack Obama, more than Ronald Reagan, more than any person in history who's ever been elected president. And they told us, well, we're going to have to bring the troops in to remove Donald Trump from the White House. But what it looks to me like is they're bringing troops in to put Joe Biden in, not to take Donald Trump out. And then I saw something today, you may have seen me put it out there on social media. Apparently, Biden's people are afraid that the National Guard will turn on him, and they've taken away their magazines. They're unarmed.
God, he's such
They don't have they have no ammunition in their weapons. Now, you guys can speak more to the military aspect of this.
Yes.
But that I find very, very curious, that they're stationing soldiers outside of these buildings. I mean, it looks like political theater to me, that if you really think that the president is in danger, why are you taking magazines away from the soldiers?
Right.
Well, or you think of it this way: wasn't it about a month or two ago that the other side was going, so against anything that had to do with the police department or the military?
Now they love the police.
Now they love it. So it's like, hey, listen, it's what's the word they use now? Changing the narrative. That's what they want to do. It's you change the narrative to fit what they have, along the way. And that's like you were talking about the numbers just a minute ago and statistics. It's changing the narrative. Before it's cases or deaths, now it's cases. They just spin it the way they can, and they have the opportunity to do that because of our media. You have, a company like Twitter that says, well, we are a privately owned business and whatever, we can do whatever we want. We own this company and we can suppress any information and take the president off. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. They're a private business. So is Halo. So is Doc's Gym. So is any restaurant in town. But if Twitter says we can do whatever we want, so that means that any shop owner could say the same thing, and we're going to stay open. But then there's such a they let that slide. That's beyond me.
Yeah.
Well, and in technology, when you start talking about these tech companies, the line between government and private is very meshed together. What most people don't know is that all of these tech companies have very, very significant government contracts to share data, our data, with the government. So they're very deeply entwined with the government. And I mean, you don't have to think very hard to think, okay, what was it, a couple months ago, the CEO of Twitter was getting crucified in front of Congress at hearings. And shockingly, now they're taking action to curry favor with the very people that regulate them. During the Democratic primaries, Elizabeth Warren was talking about, let's break up Google, let's break up Facebook. Well, now all of a sudden, Google and Facebook and Twitter and all these companies are falling all over themselves to help the people that have control over their business. So the idea that this is just Twitter reacting to a free market as a private entity is you have to be naive to think that that's the case.
Yeah.
I don't get it. So, Facebook, Twitter, Google, they're all banning Trump. Why? You know what? I mean, we know why, but is that legal? You know what I'm saying? I know it is because it's a private company, but I kind of feel like it's going against America and the Constitution, and that kind of makes them more of a domestic terrorist, kind of. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying it's kind of it's kind of strange how they're trying to use their powers like that. I don't think they belong doing that. I don't think they have any business doing that. It's about free speech and it's about the First Amendment, right?
Well, it's not just about the First Amendment, Angel, because our rights don't arise from the Constitution. The Constitution is designed to be a tool to protect our rights.
Exactly.
Our rights come from our status as human beings. Your right to express yourself and speak your ideas comes from the fact that you are a human being, not because of the Constitution.
Right.
The Constitution is intended to be a tool or a vehicle to protect that right.
Right.
So I always laugh when people use the First Amendment as the be-all and end-all of our right to free expression.
Right.
I mean, don't we value as human beings, put the Constitution aside for a minute, don't we value living in a society where we can freely express our ideas and disagree with each other, right? It's interesting because I'm not a left-wing person by any stretch of the imagination. But Noam Chomsky, who is a great thinker
Yes.
and one of the most left-wing people that you would ever want to meet, is a great champion of free speech.
Right.
And he has said it many, many times. Free speech is most important for the ideas that you despise. You either believe in free speech or you don't. And in order to say you believe in free speech, you have to believe in free speech for the ideas that sicken you, not the ideas. Everyone believes in free speech for the ideas that they agree with. Adolf Hitler believed in free speech for the ideas that he agreed with.
Right.
But
That's a good way to think of it.
free
that's
free
all
speech
it-
only has value if you're protecting the ideas you disagree with. And people don't suppress ideas that they don't think are dangerous to them.
Right.
So why is the government suppressing, or why is technology at the will of the government suppressing Donald Trump or people that support Donald Trump? There's something there that they're afraid of.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to some of the things we talked about from a military point of view, and you just take it from an attorney's point of view. There's something underlining. I think as veterans and the levels of security that you get in the military, as a team guy, you get top secret clearance. So there's stuff you're privy to that, like we talked about before. So when you talk about the levels of trying to suppress people's speech, my radar goes up and look, there's something underlining there. I don't know what it is. We're still all trying to figure it out, but there's something underlining.
Yeah, you should be able to get out. You speak how you want, like me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm about free speech. I like to cuss. I don't give a fuck. So
Yeah.
people don't like me, they could talk about me and say something about me, and I'll accept it because that's their free speech. So,
Well, what happens too on Facebook too is, and you and I kind of cut from the same cloth, I think a lot is, I have plenty of people that are liberal-minded speaking, right? And what'll happen is I kind of take it in a fun time, or over the years with the Facebook, is that I'll put something on Facebook. I'm a little leaning towards the right, military guy, and etc. But then I have a lot of friends that are more on the liberal side. But we'll go out and drink beers together.
Yeah.
But what happens is people go and get so incensed, and they want to protect me because I'm the more the conservative side, or they want to defend the guy on the liberal side. And what we do is we'll put stuff on there, and then we'll let it go, just organically, and it gets nuts.
Yeah.
And then we'll go out and grab some beers and just laugh at everybody. Because it's just about
It's just a game.
It is, and if you're just good to somebody else, like I don't care what you think, because when I go home, I'm not going home with you. And
Right.
God bless you for your thoughts. And hey, listen, if it works for you, that's great. I'm going to have my thoughts. But it goes back to the free speech. Is like, hey, let me be able to say what I want, and you say what you want, and we can, bump knuckles, whatever the hell they do nowadays. And then you're on your way, and you'll drink a beer with the guy the next day.
Yep, like I tell my friends, I'm like, hey, you might have different beliefs. You might have voted for Biden. I voted for Trump. But at the end of the day, it's like a football game. You believe in that. I'm not going to hate you for your views. Let's just, be fair and, get along and, still be friends. And let's not let politics get in between us,
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's really about.
Well, I mean, I think, myself, I have, what most people would think of, I think, is pretty crazy libertarian political views. And,
Yeah.
My right-wing friends sometimes think, oh, he's with us. And then I'll say something, they'll be like, mate, he's not so much with us. Like, what is this guy talking about? And the same thing with my left-wing friends. And what I find interesting, and I mentioned this on social media the other day, is, I've got some right-wing friends who are, true believers in the Republican Party and things like that. And I'm a little more libertarian leaning than that. But when I say something that they don't agree with, they'll tend to engage with me, and we'll go back and forth, and then we're still friends, and we don't worry about it. Because, again, you said this very well. I think a person's character is much more important than their politics.
Yes.
Right, yes.
100%.
And yet I find more and more over time, my friends that are a little more left-leaning are less willing to have that give and take, and then
More
say yes, we're
rigid.
still. They seem to be taking it a lot more personally, and I don't really understand why that phenomenon exists with that with that side of the coin, because I don't see it. I've got lots of friends that are that are fully in on Donald Trump, and I'm not a Trump voter. Now, there's some things I have, I think, a somewhat unique take on the Trump phenomenon, and there's some things I like there and some things I don't like there. But I've never had one of my friends who's big on Trump, if I say I didn't vote for Trump, get mad at me.
Yeah.
But yet I'll see people that are more left-leaning, like my wife voted for Trump. And when they hear she voted for Trump, they're like, "What? How could you do such a terrible?"
Still married to her?
Right? I mean, and so I don't really understand why we're getting this divergent reaction from people.
Right. America needs to just, be Americans. I mean, parties to me suck. All parties. They should just be America. Freedom. Work for your living. Work hard. Work as hard as you want. If you work hard, you shouldn't have to give your money to somebody else. I know we got to pay taxes, but, a lot of people, on welfare, I know some people need it, on certain aspects of their lives. They might need help, but that you got to totally need it or not be able to go to work. I believe in hard work in America, just freedom, and you should be able to work as hard as you want in the pursuit of happiness. That's what I believe, and it should be that simple. So, but yeah, that's how that is. But yes, is there anybody you want to shout out? Any shout outs that you want to give out to anybody?
Well, I would like to mention that I operate a law firm here in Fresno, and one of the things that we're doing these days, it's how I met Angel, is we're trying to protect small businesses when the government is trying to shut them down. So we've been offering, with no legal fees, free of charge, to any business that gets cited by code enforcement. We've got a couple that have been hit by ABC, the alcohol beverage control folks. Those type of administrative crackdowns and citations, we're happy to try to help you with that, and we'll do that free of charge. We will also consult with you free of charge if you have questions, if you're trying to decide whether or not to stay open and you're trying to assess your risk. We're happy to talk to you about that, and I don't want you to worry about who you're going to have to pay and how much you're going to have to pay. This is a very difficult time as our freedoms are being attacked, and I'm trying to do my part to help. I'm a small business owner myself.
Right.
So this all started happening, so I started putting out the word, and that's how I met Angel. That's how I've met some people who've become very good friends to me by trying to help them through these difficult times. So if you are a small business owner and you have questions about what you can and can't do, what your risk is, or if you are getting cited or somehow legally attacked by the government, one thing to remember, this is still the United States of America. And one of our most fundamental rights of all of our rights is our right to due process. The government has no right to tell you that you've broken the law and you can't make a living and they can take money out of your pocket. They have to prove their case.
Right.
That you have a right to a notice of the charges and an opportunity to be heard at a hearing before an impartial adjudicator. So we will help you to exercise that right. We're at Raimondo and Associates. It's area code 559-432-3000. And our website is www.raimondoassociates.com. That's RAIMONDO, the word associates.com. We're here to help. Do not pay a fine without making them prove their case, and we'll help you to do that.
I won't, and I haven't, and I thank you for sticking up for our gym here, Halo Jiu-Jitsu, and it's just, you've done so much, and I can't thank you enough. Like, lately, I've been supporting all the small businesses around here, like restaurants that are open, Saigon Shop House, they're open. If anybody out there wants to eat pho in Fresno, California, it's right off of Cedar, between Olive and McKinley. It's great. I've already eaten there like twice, in 1 week. Getting the pho, eating good. Cooney Sama, that's another local business that needs help out there off of Herndon and Willow. So get out there and support them and get their to-go orders. They're working hard to stay open. They're a small business and, they need everybody's support, So, support your small restaurants and local businesses around here. And
I can't agree with that enough. I mean, our small businesses who are staying open in the face of all this, those are our freedom fighters.
Yes, sir.
Those are our heroes.
Right.
The government can encroach on our rights until we say the most powerful word in the English language, which is no.
No.
No, sir.
Absolutely. And
No.
we have to support those businesses that are staying open because they're the ones that are protecting our freedoms against this government encroachment. So I'd encourage you to support them. And if you know of a small business that's struggling with it, send them my way because there are people out here who will be on their side and will absolutely help them.
I've already talked to a couple of these restaurant owners, and I said, you know what? you need backup, you talk to Anthony Raimondo because he's a serious attorney. He's going to help you out. So, we thank you a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate you staying open, and I appreciate every business owner who's hanging in through this difficult time. Business owners face all kinds of challenges, and there's not one business owner you talk to who hasn't had their ups and downs and their bumps that they've had to go over. But this is the first time that we've seen our government step in and say, I'm going to stop you from making a living, and we cannot allow that to happen.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I agree with that 100%. So, Doc Joe, your gym. Okay, what do you offer there? I know you're the strength and conditioning king because you've helped me out with my strength and conditioning a lot and a lot of my students. And I can't thank you enough for what you do for Halo as well, getting our students in shape that have, we cross-train a lot. So
we're real fortunate, because it's kind of a multidisciplinary, because obviously I'm the doctor there, the chiropractor, more of a sports-minded background. So we see everything from auto accidents to cash-paying patients to, some insurances along the way for the therapy there. But then, obviously the benefit and from our background, military, sports-wise, and et cetera, that, you may get an adjustment, but the important part is also to keep the musculoskeletal system, put together too. So in our gym, we have about a 6,000 square foot facility. You have part of it's the chiropractic office and therapy, and then we have maybe 5,500 square feet of, strength and conditioning. So it encompasses like a CrossFit classes, kind of came out of the military, the high intensity training. We have personal trainers, and then we just have basically, we'll use the word open therapy as opposed to open gym.
Yes, open therapy. That's legit.
We've been real blessed because we're a primary healthcare providing facility. We are not technically a gym. And so we've been pretty blessed, as a small business to stay open through this. As obviously things ebbed and flowed throughout this past year, yes, but we've been blessed on the medical side to still stay, freely open.
Awesome, man. Well, you know what, guys? It was amazing having you today on the show. Anthony Raimondo, Doc Joe Martin. That's going to conclude our episode of Modern Day Warrior. Stay free. Be safe, everybody. Peace.
If you're fighting against the toughest, you're going to become the toughest. If you're fighting in that environment, the toughest environment, you're going to become that environment. So let's just get used to the toughest environment and let's go for it. Let's just make it happen. I'm the head professor here.